Is it possible to increase the volume and quality of conversions with qualified and automatically scheduled 24/7?
We do have times available at 12 p.m., 1 p.m., 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. Which of these times would you like to choose?
The 1 p.m. is perfect.
Ready. The visit is confirmed for October 18 at 1 p.m. I'm very excited for you.
Of course, yes, sales and marketing can now save resources to direct them to what matters thanks to the post and generative agents. In this second part, we will review a case in real estate with a step-by-step in which we implemented this solution. Stay until the end, where I explain an additional work that executes personalized recommendations that close more and better. We will review the diagram with the activities automate. The first trigger will be when the lead completes the form. And as we saw in the previous video, we assume and know that the highest response rate is in a written channel. That is why we use WhatsApp, where our AI agent can rate the lead. And for it, we use these two scenarios in email and these applications. Additional, I highly recommend that you check that video. I will leave it at the top of the video, or if not, below in the comments, so you can organize it. Since in this video we give you the possibility of that channel request a call, but in this video we are going to review only the case in which the form activates the agent call. Once people call, then they will qualify, they will ask about their availability, they will sign. If they are not available, then people will schedule a second call with these make scenarios, and in the case that they are available, then they will execute a series of questions to validate if information that or in the form is still current or valid. And if you see it, then it will ask you if you want to visit the property. And for this, we will use this scenario of me to be able to carry out the availabilities of is within the responses of. Also, our agent will be able to determine if the information given to you during the call corresponds or does not correspond to the form. And depending on it, the agent will look for and recommend new alternatives to the L with this scenario in AM. And in the case that yes, it fully corresponds, then he qualifies so that I can finally schedule a tour of the property in Google Calendar. Well, the first thing you will have to do is design your form. In this case, I fire their names, an email, telephone number, the estimated budget. With that, I conclude that here, yes, in the integrate section, here you are going to create your automation workflows. In my case, I already have this one created, which starts with or is triggered when the form is filled out. The prudent amount of time after the user fills it out. If it is not a little invasive, I think it would be less, but a maximum of 5 minutes. No more paraphrasing. When sending from Webhook, here in editing, we now review what you should place while here. Ensure the post method, and in this case, they are the same variables that I already had at the time of. So when it is with those fields configured, let's make. This is the first scenario. We will have Webhook once your account is created as I have it. And so the name will appear, its URL. Copy it and paste it in. This is very well. The second module now to configure is in HTTP request. When you configure it in this field to place the endpoint or URL of Retell.ai, that is an application that we will now review. Very important to create our agent. Everything else you will have to configure method configure here, authorization here, reviewer space, and the code of your personal access token. Here you will put the type of content type application, JSON. Here is this configuration row JSON. And here the entire body of the request in JSON format. Do not worry, you will also have this ready, prepared, configured when you download template in a link below in the comments, this URL, your account, and fill out this board. Create a multi-prompt agent, that the blank template, and you will have your first agent here. Create a number, enter your new agent, and here make sure to configure the generation mod option. Then the voice agent there is the large amount of dent. The vast majority, of course, are from languages with female and male voices in English. If you want voices from other countries, it can be a little more complicated, but you have, in this case like me, yes, custom goes where you can add a custom voice, basically the name that connects you with the labs libraries in case you want to check what are those voices and look for the voice that you like the most. In my case, I'm using this, and then here in this box you are going to plot the PR that we need. In this case, I use strategies like prompting, which basically tells you that you have this name. This is your type of professional agent, sister of the real estate agency who calls potential once the form is filled out. With information about the properties of your choice. You are kind, you give kind responses, and you care deeply about the user. And here I indicate your role, which is to ask them, and in brackets, and it is a variable that will receive data from the previously filled out form. And this is how. How can we make our agent configuration dynamic with data that can be connected to their applications? And here, I tell him, ask his name, ask him with his name, and make sure to ask him if that question, the property is the right one to leave this PR. Also, when you enter the comments below to all these resources that I will have for you, so that you can make the adjustments that you need. As you will notice, it has sufficient strategies that are needed. In this case, here I use step by step, where I basically indicate what the guiding principles are that I need him to behave. And I make the clarifications. Those clarifications will be very useful in this case. So the next thing figure is the welcome message here for the age, some options. But here it would be useful for us to start with a message. How are you? Now we move on to editing the bronze tree. Well, once this canvas arrives, click on the new state. A house appears in which we are going to put the name here. I would put a pencil on it. This conversation title is an introduction. We are going to need 3 additional conversion threads that are alternative, and each conversion or thread will have to be exclusive to each other, meaning that one of them will be fulfilled, will be carried out, and the other we are not going to put the name to each one. This will be the tool callback, and this last one, the property reaction, we are going to join them in this way, and we configure the intro. I already have the entire sequence of instructions, and here you realize that I use the variables, in this case name of the lead and property consulted, 2 variables that will receive the data from the form that it is placed between cars of the PRS in a sequence of steps, a very specific prompt chaining technique. And I am telling you that the prompt asks the language model if it is available. If not, then go to callback or callback from step 3 to 8. Basically, I am saying that to the sequence of questions to validate if the information that completed the link in the form is still valid in the simply specific, if it meets all the criteria in all. Ask if you are interested in a tour, and I put it in English because these relatively new systems still perform better in English than in another language. Eventually it will not be necessary, but for that I configure my prompts in English. Also know that you will also have these instructions as templates will be put in the comments so that you can access these resources. As an example, we are going to configure our first scenario of a call or a second call here. What I ask the IA agent is to take into account the work hours. With the days and work hours, take into account what I ask of the people, since they have days and work hours. I use prompt chaining, a sequence of the first I say you should ask the US has to answer you with day, date, and if not, suggest that it be in the morning at 4. That check if the time, if available, until within those work hours and use the function in step 3 that uses the call function or callback. Schedule a second one in step 3. I tell you to schedule a second call through the callback function. Right now, we will review that and what has been programmed, and say goodbye with a farewell function. In this case, in call 25 below, in custom function, is where we are going to configure our functions. The first is about calling back. To the similar description, what we have put in the prompt in the URL. Here, we will use the URL, a make address that we will. Now review that scenario, and here in parameters, in JSON format, we will put two properties that serve us. In this case, the callback property is a string type. The description, like the one we use in the Pro, and an email here you can activate. It should say, during the call, give me a second. When executing this function, we also enable the call termination function, simply name and description, to now obtain the callback URL in my callback scenario agenda. And my first back module put a name URL is generated for me, and this is the copy. I paste it in this space. User mod ChatGPT. We configure chat completions, a recent model that works best in this case. Use this the user role, and here the prompt basically indicates the date information that it provides. You convert it to an ISO format, such as through this formula. Here are example email, and I have the variable that provides the lit about your time availability. And here in my test effectively corresponds to you, and here we place it. Also, we will use this appointment module to schedule a chronological job that works as an activation timer. Here in this field, we will use another URL. Right now, we will review the scenario, since this scenario is only to obtain the date format and P the data when that date is met. For this, here in the data field, I simply want to send less as an email message. We will see how we use that data. Here we use an interval only once. And here are the values that we will send to another mail scenario, which is the output of our Rescheduling module already with the ISO format of the date, and in such a way that when that date is met, then this module is activated and sends this data in such a way that when that date is met, then send this data to this URL. And this URL is another second scenario of the second call. We have the DOU module to be able to connect this URL when I send the email data, which this CRM module. We will use precisely as a filter to be able to search among all the leads of the CRM and obtain specific data from this lead. And in the HTTP module, we are going to place the URL to create a phone call with an app with the post method. We will use this header information that is necessary, which is the authorization in your access token here, the content application, John, this configuration as is. And in the body, we will use this script in John with the data of the telephone number I am going to call, which must have been previously configured or purchased, the same rate, the number that I am going to call, and the rest of the data that I have completed in the form.
I'm Lorena from the real estate company. We received your contact request on our phone. I find you in a good time to talk?
Not now. Could you contact me tomorrow at 5 p.m.?
I understand, Christian. However, tomorrow at 5 p.m. is outside of our business hours. Do you think it would be okay if I call you tomorrow at 4 p.m.?
Yes, I will be available.
Perfect. I've scheduled the call for tomorrow at 4 p.m. Thank you for your time, Christian. Have a great day.
Up to here. If you liked it or found it useful, I remind you to subscribe. Let's continue well. Now automate the second scenario of scheduling the Turar property back. in the prompt conversation thread as context. Our Liti has already agreed to perform that personal T with the property it requests. So dirty. All the tasks that we will need this will look more closely. When you can already use this day, and in the meantime take step 3. We are going to use the check availability function. In this case, our agent is going to have to check the availability not only of the same real estate agent, but also if the day that the lead says corresponds to 10 criteria or not. And for that, we go to the custom functions section. We illuminate exactly with the name of the function that we use here in the field. We put the name exactly that we have written above in the prompt. In this case, search availability, the description, basically the appointment time requested by the user. We are going to put the URL of a webhook in make module that we will review right now. Here, the only parameter in JSON that we need here in the M scenario, our first module is this one. We place it by placing the name we will use, URL that is generated, and we will paste it in this field. Then a GPT chat module. We can use a recent module, in this case GPT-4 or Mini, that looks quite good. In there specified in the system. Basically, what we tell it is to capture the day and date that it requests and transform it into a format or of this style, a time and a final time, and the user error we pass it the current day. With this now formula and the exact time, which is the variable of the date and time variable that was requested, and that comes from Retell to the function that we have configured before new module to parse or divide in JSON, which will result as output of the PT chat module. That is why we choose right here in choices messages, and here the content, which is precisely the output that R will generate GPT chat. Since we have an input, date and time, and another output, that same one will be divided. We will use this module to create a variable, and we will use this date formatting formula. We'll use as input the start date variable that has been partial from the previous module, and it specifies the days, and we specify the days format here. We will only use 2, and they will then carry router. Mule to direct the paths depending on what condition is met. In this case, we link it with a response for our agent. For our agent, we are going to use this filter. We are going to name it weekends. What I want at this filter is to determine the weekend days, and for this we put the day of the week with the first 2 letters we have formatted with the previous module. If that is equal to Saturday, then this condition is met. Also, if it is equal to Sunday, then if that condition is met as a response, it will be available on weekends and business hours in the case that you add them in a single array to this module. Create a JSON format for it, since this is the format that the chat module can handle without any problem. So here we configure it as before, and as a prompt we indicate that its task is to list the available times between the working hours of 9 to 5, that it extract those busy times that only provide as output the dates and times available in this format. Then with a message with the user and use place are the busy times in the calendar, and together with the variable of the JSON string that we had previously created with the module. Finally, now that we have the desired format that communicates our conversational voice agent, then we place the response of the chat prompt module that corresponds to content, and that's where we finish with the description that we mentioned, for example. And we also use the pro that has to have a specific format in ISO, the length that we will use in another scenario that we will review now, and the parameters, and the only properties that we will need will be the start time, the description, and the email, this one, which is general. We would use it in this field. Then our Google Calendar to create an event indicates here we are going to log in with our Google Calendar account. We put in details, the ID that corresponds to your account. Then we are going to indicate the field. This configuration starts on this date. Then the response will be to confirm success. Then we are going to indicate the field. This configuration starts on this date. Then the response will be to confirm success.
Greetings from Anika from Real Estate. We received your contact request on our form. Would you mind meeting me at a good time to talk?
Now is a great time.
Thank you. You expressed interest in a country house category property with a purchase value of $600,000. Property ID 101 is located on 345th Street, Miami. It's an apartment with a rent of $10,000. It has one bathroom, two bedrooms, and can accommodate up to 4 people. I'd like to ask you a few questions to make sure this property fits your needs. First, what features are you looking for in a property?
I like that property. I'm looking for exactly that one.
Great, I'm glad you like it. To make sure it's the perfect option for you, can you tell me how many people are in your family?
We are 3 people.
Thanks for the information, Christian. So with 3 people in your family, that sounds good. Now what is your budget for rent?
Approximately $10,000.
Your budget of $10,000 fits very well since the property is priced at that range. Now do you have any pets?
No, I don't have one.
Excellent. And lastly, how many bedrooms are you looking for?
2 bedrooms, nothing more.
Perfect. The property has 2 bedrooms. So it meets your requirements based on what you've told me. It seems like this property fits the bill. Would you like to schedule an in-person visit?
Yes, I would like that.
I'm here to help you schedule visits. Do you have a day and time in mind that you would like to see the property?
I'm thinking about October 19th.
Perfect. October 19th. Would you like it in the morning or in the afternoon?
Great. In the afternoon.
I'll check availability for that day. Just a moment, please. It seems that October 19th is a Saturday and we are not available on weekends. I would like to choose another day between Monday and Friday.
Oh, right. Sorry, then October 18th would be better.
Perfect. October 18th. Would you like it in the afternoon? If so, what time would you like to schedule the visit?
Let me see. October 18th at it seems I am able to 2 p.m.
Perfect. Then we have the visit scheduled for October 18th at 2 p.m. I'll confirm availability for that time. Just a moment, please. Unfortunately, we do not have availability at 2 p.m. on October 18th. However, we do have times available at 12 p.m., 1 p.m., 3 p.m. and 5 p.m. Which of these times would you like to choose?
The 1 p.m. is perfect.
Then we have the visit scheduled for October 18th at 1 p.m. I'm going to confirm the appointment. Just a moment, please. Ready. The visit is confirmed for October 18th at 1 p.m. I'm very excited for you to be able to see the property. If you have any other questions or need more information.
In the third, we will have property recommendations. And as we indicated as context, you have found that the property that the user applied for is not the right one. So you are going to provide alternatives. In the task session, you are going to confirm that the user meets the following criteria and make correction based on the user's criteria to search for alternative properties using the search for alternative properties function. Everything else is more details. To finalize the prompt, in the custom function section, we place the same name as the PR that we placed above, then the description of what it does, and an example of how I want the output to be very concrete, simple. The UR that will connect us with the H and the parameters. We will only need 2 variables, question, and the user's email, the question that will ask exactly the link about the property you want, and to obtain the URI. Now we do our last scenario, third scenario. In this we create, give it a name, generate the URI, paste it in the field, and in the HTTP module. Request in the HTTP request module, go to here. You will place the URL of an agent specialized in those alternatives. Now search for application. We will use the post method. Put content type John. And finally, in the content request, put as question. The variable that sent voice from Retell.ai that reaches our queue. So in this case, it is question. And here, as you have already done the tests, it corresponds exactly to the type of response that I expect to build a people specialized in search for this type of alternatives. We need a more advanced application. Flowise.com will help us just to build this type of agents quickly and powerfully. Review and its documentation in this direction deployment. and choose the alternative that best suits you. I am using Retell.ai, so there, they review exactly the steps they need once inside Flowise in the chat flow section. What I recommend is that you go to the nut icon in the upper right corner and select import. A template that I will already have ready for you to download, link B of this video in which I start. There's a 2-agent module that centralizes at least four other modules. By the way, this agent will already have medium advanced capabilities since it will use Generative Augmented Recovery Technique, or RAG. So that the first component will be the chat front template, this module. Here we are going to specify the prompt of both the system and human mode. We are also going to link the calling chat model tool that basically allows you to link with a generative LLM model. We will use the open chat as you will see here, and we'll first configure the credentials of your open account, the name of the model, and the temperature. We are also going to use a memory that saves the sessions. Buffer memory component will also serve. We will finally link tools, and this component that will serve will be retriever tool, which will add a name and a description which indicates it will search and return information of the characteristics of the properties listed here. You need to know that the name you give it must match exactly when you mention it in the prompt template that we saw, so that the AI knows when and where to use it. Now returning to this component, we are going to link it with a retriever, which will be this in-memory vector. You will need a documents, and embeddings. It is something else that a format that has already had a transformation. In this case, transform the text into a numerical representation of vectors, which can only be stored in this way and hosted within a vector space. This is how this RAG technique works, so that it can do searches. To do this, we are going to link it with an open model that performs this embedding transformation. Open embeddings. And we choose the name of the model, which is also how we configure the credentials. And on the document side, we are going to use database, in this case table, configure primary among the credentials that also extracted from your table account. And 3A, additional fields that we are going to extract from the same URL, also for the case of table ID and ID, this same URL that corresponds to the address where the record of your database is hosted. So to get this base ID, we're going to select what app indicates and an alphanumeric sequence up to /, which corresponds to ID. Then what TB indicates and a numeric sequence that corresponds to table ID. And then finally the last /. Everything that's left will correspond to IDE, and it's just referencing ID. Finally, we're going to link it with a text splitter, and the module will be charter text splitter with this configuration that we noticed. And finally, to get the URL of your agent, go to this icon and everything after that. From HTTPs is the address that you need to copy and paste into your HTTP module, just AC and OPA. When that's ready, and also configure a web response, the output that Flowise will generate, you have it in this case from the text variable. There you have the from HTTPs is the address that you need to copy and paste into your HTTP module. When that's ready, and also configure a web response, the output that Flowise will generate, you have it in this case from the text variable. There you have the response. Now let's do a test. Flowise application, we go to the message in the chat. We're going to test our G. For that, we go to the table to view two records of two properties that have similar attributes. They are below 11,000 and they are rustic type. Let's use it as a test for that. I'm going to put those in the description as a request for those characteristics. And we see that our agent already quickly articulated a structured response based on the prompt that we had configured response that we can send to our voice AI agent. I congratulate you for getting here. If you are implementing it even more, it is frustrating at first, but with practice, everything is possible. If you have more questions, in the description of my video, I will leave a link to Discord and Telegram so that we can interact and leave each other tips, since I am forming a community of enthusiasts in this field. On the other hand, if you have a business or know someone who would like to add artificial intelligence, contact my team so that they can assist you properly according to needs and on a scale. On the other hand, if you like this video, leave a like and share it. That's all until the next video.